Hey there, welcome to this edition of Bitcoin Brief. It is Friday, December 11th, and we are joined by our two Bitcoin educators, Tone Vays and Jimmy Song, as well as the legendary swashbuckling defender of Bitcoin's honor on Twitter, Giacomo Zucco. And I'm Florence Correa, your host today. Hey there. Giacomo, so glad you were able to join us. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm also glad to be.
My bad. That's my bad. That was an awesome intro. I totally screwed that up.
Go ahead, Giacomo.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be back, and I have a background which is even less credible than Tone's background right now.
I gotta give you mine. I'll give you. I'll put Italy as next on the list for you, Giacomo.
Well, okay, but right now it's still very, very strange and oniric because you have the pink stuff, so it's very strange already.
And Tone, how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm good. Wait. I just got a message from YouTube. Okay, so they are gonna keep our politics video. I failed the appeal of the politics video, and that is gonna stay off the channel. My YouTube channel now has a warning, so we cannot mention anything about, well, I can't even say the E word anymore, and I don't want to say the C word anymore either. It's not the one that you guys are probably thinking right now, because I am going to the, I can't even say the T word anymore either. I am going to be in Washington, D.C. to potentially support one side or the other. I can't say which side I'm supporting, but I will be in Washington, and I just bought a GoPro, and I'm going to try to live stream what is happening out there in the streets. And if I get any kind of warning between now and this time tomorrow, I will not be able to live stream from the Capitol. I'd rather live stream from the Capitol and then get my channel banned, but not before. So that's my current update.
So let's focus on the B word.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Jimmy, how are things going?
It's going great. I can't believe Giacomo's on because, as we know, he doesn't like to be on the show anymore for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Not true. I always love the guy. Just a little bit less organized than usual, which was already not very much organized.
How can you be less organized? You've been like home, like for like.
Well, that's what happens when you don't have a job anymore. You just become a lot less organized.
I suppose that's true. Yeah. All right. That's fine.
All right. So, well, there's so much going on in the cryptosphere this week. We have so much to cover. So without wasting too much time, let's just jump straight into it. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, Giacomo is also a Bitcoin educator and consultant at B Academy.
Yeah, B Academy,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, glad to have you on. So let's just jump right into it. Let me start screen share.
Yeah, G, you don't need to mute if unless there's like noise around you. You're fine.
Okay, thanks. It's very sensitive Yeti mic. So let's see if something.
Well, I mean, if your baby starts crying, we'll let you know.
She's not here, otherwise it would not be feasible.
That's it. So there's no risk whatsoever, unless there's like construction outside or something.
All right, so on to our first story. Bitstamp apologizes after posting report calling XRP toxic waste. In a tweet from Bitstamp posted today, the exchange issued an apology for posting research firm Messari's crypto thesis for 2021 report from founder and CEO Ryan Selkis. The report refers to XRP as toxic waste, with Selkis calling Bitcoin, Fox, Stellar Lumens, and Litecoin piles of The report said, these are toxic assets propped up by regulatory capture, and they go against everything that got me into crypto. Bitstamp has removed the original tweet it posted following the report's publication on December 8th and referred to parts of the language and content in the report as inconsistent with the firm's value. The firm added that it believed some aspects were disrespectful towards part of the community. Do you agree with this tone, or what's your take?
Well, I certainly agree with the 138 report, especially if the entire report was spent on talking about the shittiness of Ripple. I'm sure it wasn't. I mean, it's hard to talk that much insanity about one project. I don't agree with Bitstamp, obviously, with their retraction. This is kind of like part of that cancel culture. You say something that's actually correct, but then the whole SJW culture, no, you can't talk bad about scams. You have to include the scams. It's like everybody gets a trophy. And of course, Bitstamp has to profit from using Ripple and all the others. I tweeted something out about Ripple earlier in regards to another story, actually. So maybe we should save that tweet for later, because I just realized. Yeah, we'll get to it later. And yeah, we're going to keep the first end of set of stories short, because we have a lot of good stories later on. And this is, again, just catering to the SJW cancel culture, where you can't do legitimate analysis and speak your mind because a couple of crybabies are going to get upset over it.
Thanks, Don. Giacomo, your first story in a while. What's your take on this?
Well, I was just starting to like Bitstamp when I read about the leak, and then they apologized and they ruined everything. So that's a pity. I agree with Don. This is just like cancel culture. What is very interesting is that, ironically, the prevalent narrative is that Bitcoiners, or so-called Bitcoin maximalists, so people that are honest enough to call the shitcoins, they are usually depicted as intolerant and vocal. But then I don't remember any exchange ever having to apologize to Bitcoiners because they lied about Bitcoin or they supported the Bitcoin attack. They never apologize to Bitcoiners. They have to apologize to shitcoiners of Ripple. So maybe the intolerant minority is not really Bitcoiners anymore. So I'm a little bit confused.
That's true. Jimmy, what's your take?
Well, so you can always tell like how much of a scammer somebody is by where they're willing to draw the line. So if you're not willing to call anything a scam, then you're a serious scammer. If you're calling some things a scam but other things not, I count like people like Ryan Selkis, who seems to think that Vitalik is honest for some reason. As one of those people, he's less scammy than Bitstamp, but then you get to other people that only like Bitcoin and Monero. I think they're still scammy, and then you get to people like us who think that Bitcoin's the only one. I think we're the ones telling the truth, and I think that's kind of a good gauge of how quote unquote political a lot of these people are or have to be. Bitstamp kind of has to say stuff like this because they make all their money off of trading. And if they pissed off the XRP army, then they're going to lose business to Binance or somebody else that has trading of this stuff. So, and similar thing with Ryan Selkis. If he starts trashing Ethereum, whoever pays for his newsletter, which I'm sure are lots of people, they would stop subscribing because they're like, they'd be like, hey, Ethereum is one of our greatest assets. You're not telling us what we want to hear. So in a sense, all of this is to say that people that like or that want to please other people and have another agenda will have statements like this. And this is a good object lesson in how to identify that. There you go.
Yeah, real quick, Florence, you want to scroll up just a little bit to the top of the yellow? No, a little bit. Like, yeah. So right here, Ryan Selkis is not a Bitcoin maximalist. He is a shitcoiner. Don't get us wrong. Just because he doesn't like a couple of them, I'm not sure why he doesn't like Litecoin. I guess they didn't pay the bill this month. But like Jimmy said, if Stellar Lumens and the Litecoin Foundation start paying him, he'll talk about these things very, very favorably. Ripple, some people do have principles on Ripple. So if Ripple came to him offering money, he'll probably turn that down. But Litecoin and Stellar, Although I'm sure he'll take their money and all of a sudden flip on those coins. Ryan Selkis is nowhere near shitcoin minimalist. Let's put it that way.
Thank you so much, Tone. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it needs to be said. Moving on to the next story. Citi is working with some governments to create digital currencies, says CEO. Quick take, Citigroup CEO Michael Corbett has revealed that the bank is working with some governments to create digital currencies. Corbett said sovereign digital currencies are inevitable. We've been working with some governments around the world in terms of the creation and commercialization of digital currencies. I think it's inevitable that they will be coming, said Corbett, without disclosing which governments. So last time we did this show, we covered that Europe is all over stablecoin regulation. So Giacomo, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thought is about the word digital and the expression digital currencies. Currencies are digital, like the currencies, the fiat currencies in your bank are digital, and they represent a monetary base, which is mostly digital for a euro and for US dollar. So the currencies are mostly digital. The part which is physical, with printed paper banknotes and coined coins with metal, it's a small, tiny portion. So when we talk about well, digital currencies are inevitable, sure they are. They already are digital everywhere. It's fiat money. What they mean, and I'm afraid that they will start to abuse, they will continue to abuse this word until it will not mean anything anymore. I think that when they say digital, they mean less directly intermediated by commercial banks. So right now you have the central bank printing digital money to commercial banks, and commercial banks basically let this digital money represented either by your e-banking system or by fintech apps like PayPal or Apple Pay, and people use those or credit cards. What they are talking about is basically centralizing this already pretty centralized process to have central banks issuing directly to some app to the final user, which is not digital money. It's only more centralized money. It's the opposite of Bitcoin and everything Bitcoin represents.
Thanks so much, Giacomo. Very well said. Jimmy, rather, you want to give your analysis on this?
Well, so all of these like giant fintech companies or finance companies and banks, they have like quote unquote like blockchain groups or whatever, and they want to sell their services so bad. And I think they're just sort of getting ahead of the curve a little bit here, because they know that as soon as Bitcoin moons, what's going to happen is people are going to emphasize quote unquote blockchain technology or something like that, and they're going to come knocking and saying, hey, can we get in, can we get your consulting services or whatever. So this is sort of a way to toot their own horn, to you know, get more business for their you know, blockchain research group or something like that. And this is who they think their next customer base is going to be. Governments pay a lot of money and their contracts are super long, and they, you know, like it's very lucrative. So essentially, I think the CEO is trying to position Citi in order to have more of a say in that and get those very lucrative government contracts, as if you know, Citi doesn't get enough money from government. It's actually kind of disgusting, but you know, what can you do?
Well,
right.
I'll comment real quick as well. Jimmy took the, I guess, the more like the political angle, so I'll take more the tech angle. As Giacomo said, I mean, the governments already have a digital currency. It's their own digital currency. All they have to do is get rid of cash. But all this talk about we're going to have a stable coin on a blockchain, what blockchain are they going to use? Because they all want to be in control of the stable coin. Citi wants one, and then JP Morgan's going to want one. And there's going to be like, you know, 300 stable coins, all representing the US dollar. How are they going to interact with each other? They need a common underlying database. If only Swift existed. They need a common underlying database. So what are they going to do? If they're actually going to use a blockchain, they have some choices. They have Bitcoin and they have shitcoins. Shitcoins being Ethereum, EOS, Tron, Waves, BitConnect, one coin layer, whatever else they want to use as that underlying layer, but they all will have to be on that same layer. Of course, they can always use the Polkadot scam that is going to move these stable coins between the respective blockchains. So if Citi wants to do it on top of Ethereum and JP Morgan wants to do it on top of EOS, they can then somehow use the Polkadot scam to move between each other to make it even less efficient than the current US dollar. They have two choices. They can all either pick the same shitcoin to build on top of, whether that's Ethereum, EOS, Cardano, God knows. And then these companies would be in full control of that underlying layer, because if something goes wrong, they will take complete control of it. Or they can choose to use Bitcoin, where they will never get control of it. So why in the world would any of these things use Bitcoin? Because it's actually a decentralized layer. None of these stable coins make any sense whatsoever. And it's laughable that the traditional companies are trying to get in on this. They'll make money from it because they'll charge a fee either to the government or to the user to use those stable coins.
Amazing insights, Tone. At this point, it's starting to look like every currency will eventually be digitized. Moving on to the next story, MicroStrategy will issue 400 million in securities to buy more Bitcoin. Leading business intelligence firm MicroStrategy is doubling down on Bitcoin, announcing a securities offering to raise 400 million to invest in Bitcoin. The world's largest publicly traded business intelligence firm, MicroStrategy, has announced plans to invest the proceeds of a 400 million securities offering in Bitcoin. On December 7th, the firm revealed plans to issue 400 million in convertible senior notes. At current prices, the 400 million would increase the company's holdings by 20,833 Bitcoin, which would bring the firm's total crypto stash to almost 62,000 Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy is a company based in Virginia and was started by the billionaire investor Michael Saylor and Sanjul Bansal. Jimmy, what's your take on this recent announcement by MicroStrategy?
Well, it sounds like that sweet, sweet printed money is coming into Bitcoin. And I always thought it was going to be retail investors that would do this by taking out student loans or mortgages and then like using that money to buy Bitcoin. But turns out that companies have a much easier path, because if I'm not mistaken, they're getting something like 0.75% on these convertible notes, which is like insanely low. But they're going to get $400 million of newly printed money to put into Bitcoin. And you don't need too many of these to happen before you get something like hyper Bitcoinization. I think Pierre Rochard a while ago on Nakamoto Institute wrote an article, The Speculative Attack Against the US dollar. It's basically lots of people taking out huge loans in order to buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin keeps going up. At that point, like you can get you don't need that much of newly printed money going into Bitcoin before that turns into a flood. I don't think this is the beginning of that, obviously, but MicroStrategy has been ahead of the curve on this. And if they're successful in this and Bitcoin, say, goes to 100,000 or something like that, they're going to look like geniuses. Their balance sheet is going to be super healthy, and it's going to be essentially a substitute for BTC at that point. And they'll be able to do another round of a convertible note and do something similar. As long as you have the ability to borrow at insanely low rates, which large companies have, to be fair, then, I mean, MicroStrategy won't be the only one after they 10x their money and have like much healthier balance sheets. In fact, I suspect that a lot of like, pink sheet stocks or stocks that aren't doing well, have had bad quarters or whatever, are the target of short sellers. They'll just go out and float a note or even a junk bond or whatever, grab some money, and then buy Bitcoin with it as downside protection against shorters, because you know that short traders do not want to be shorting Bitcoin. So it's going to be an interesting ride. Let's just put it that way.
That's an interesting point of view, Jimmy. Anything to add, Tone?
Yeah, Giacomo is gonna, after I go, Giacomo is probably gonna like curse me out. But so, and almost every libertarian is about to curse me out. Look, it feels like Michael Saylor is getting very addicted to Bitcoin. And I'm not saying, you know, there's anything that should be done about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't have $400 million to invest in Bitcoin once, not to mention 3 times. And I don't know if I'm happy with one person, you know, when buying up all of the Bitcoin because the rest of the world hasn't realized it yet. It's not the best thing for Bitcoin, in my opinion. Now, unlike 90% of the world that wants to rule other people as communist dictators, I like, even if I was the ruler of the world, I wouldn't do anything about it. Like, I wouldn't like force Michael Saylor not to buy the Bitcoin. I'm not here to rule other people. I would just say that as a concerned Bitcoiner, I'm not exactly thrilled that some guy is going to come in and buy up, you know, 20% of all the Bitcoin supply, because it's not healthy for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Because if the US government decides to put him in handcuffs, they will confiscate this Bitcoin from him. I don't know how much he will be able to hold out. Like, so that's my only concern with a story like this. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying that as, you know, a small fry in the Bitcoin space, I'm not exactly happy about it. Like, I'm not happy that, what's his name? Bill Gates is so rich and is now destroying the world by being a health expert, which he's not. I don't know what, well, in the health expert part, it's definitely I can do something about that as a dictator. Generally, like, this is just my general view on it, that he's buying up too much Bitcoin, and it's concerning.
Tom,
well, actually, no, I have to say that I'm not, in this case, this specific case, I'm not really against what you're saying. I think there is a distinction. Many libertarians like me, they have trouble when pointing out the risk of some centralization. You propose as a solution even more centralization, like Facebook is evil, so let's have the US Congress control social media. That's not about in that case, I'm not criticizing the concern about centralization. I'm criticizing the cure to which is worse than the disease. So in this case, if somebody is saying that the SEC should step in to stop Michael Saylor to buy too many Bitcoin, that would be worse than would be a solution which is worse than the problem itself. If you are just pointing out concerns, that's absolutely a libertarian thing to do. Centralization is risky. Satoshi's stack of Bitcoin is a small systemic risk, and this is a way smaller systemic risk. Having too many people, too few people owning too much Bitcoin could be eventually a disruptive thing. Especially, I will add 2 things in this specific case. The first one is that it's one could wonder, why should people lend money to MicroStrategy in order for MicroStrategy to buy Bitcoin and then profit from it when people can just buy Bitcoin? But one could just answer, the reason is that if you buy shares or bonds of a company, that's regulatory very simple. You don't have to think about private keys and notes and exchange. You just buy with your normal trading platforms. You just buy this bond, or with your normal private equity or private bond system. So it's a simplification for traditional investors. But the question then becomes, why should MicroStrategy? I mean, what is MicroStrategy? It's just a fund to buy Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Investment Trust or Grayscale, or is it a company which does technology? So it's a little bit strange as a company right now. And the other thing that is a little bit worrying for me is that Michael Saylor basically started right now recently to speak out a lot in favor of government intervention in Bitcoin and changing the Bitcoin protocol and ecosystem, listening to feedback from regulators and governments, which I think is very, very cringe. It's also very unstable, because people who start thinking about a permissioned kind of Bitcoin, right now they are okay, because the permissions they are thinking about, the regulation they're thinking about is just KYC and maybe censorship to payments to Iran or to WikiLeaks. And they don't care, because MicroStrategy is not going to pay to Iran, is not going to donate to WikiLeaks, is not going to buy weeds on the Silk Road or whatever. So he doesn't care. But the next step, of course, as Jimmy said, this could be the beginning or the very early phase of a speculative attack on the US dollar. And when then attacks actually becomes tangible, the US government will actually increase regulation to avoid capital to flow out of the dollars and into Bitcoin. And so if somebody idolizes regulators and regulation as Saylor does, eventually what they're saying is that they are just buying Bitcoin now because they are allowed to, and then eventually they will just dump when the regulators will ask them to dump, because they're just following the regulation, and the regulation will eventually try to limit the flow of capital from US dollar to Bitcoin. So I wouldn't trust this kind of guys. There's nothing we can do about it. I think that it's not even relevant in the long term. I would say short term, this is good for Bitcoin because the price can go higher. Middle term, this may be a little bit disruptive because MicroStrategy will sell out all the Bitcoins when his politicians' friends will ask him to. And long term, this is irrelevant because anyway, the game theory in place will make this kind of money completely irrelevant in the big scheme of things because the incentives is still good for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like it doesn't matter because people are going to do what they're allowed to do, and we can bitch about it all day long, but it doesn't matter. He's going to do this, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's part of the beauty of the system is that no matter what we think, every individual is sovereign over what they want to do, and that's better for everybody.
But that's true for shitcoins as well, right, Jimmy? I mean, we can still speak about what we think is reasonable or not, or dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change anything. Bitcoin will still work based on personal incentives. So you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Giacomo. So short-term good, medium-term bad, and long-term irrelevant. It's very well said. A flood of money and credit. Ray Dalio, new Bitcoin praise echoes MicroStrategy. Bitcoin can offer protection against the depreciating value of money, newly bullish investor Ray Dalio says. In a Reddit Ask Me Anything session on December 8th, Dalio, who last month abandoned his skepticism of Bitcoin, said that the cryptocurrency could complement gold as an investment. I think that Bitcoin and some other digital currencies have over the last 10 years established themselves as interesting gold-like asset alternatives with similarities and differences to gold and other limited supply. Mobile storeholds of wealth, he wrote. So it could serve as a diversifier to gold and other storeholds of wealth assets. So Ray Dalio is the founder of the Connecticut-based Bridgewater investment firm, the world's largest hedge fund, and he's also the latest billionaire investor to show interest in Bitcoin. What are your thoughts, Tone?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to read the next story right away and we can cover them both together because we're getting short on time and we still have so much to cover, and then I'll comment on both. If you want to close the ad on Gemini, that would free up some space as well, like the bottom X.
There is another one that she cannot close actually on the side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, never mind, Florence.
All right. Renaissance Technologies emerged as third biggest buyer of MicroStrategy's stock since the summer. So Renaissance, Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund famous for its sterling market performance and quantitative approach to developing trading models, appears to have been major buyer of MicroStrategy's stock this year. As noted by the Block research analyst Ryan Todd, the third largest buyer of MicroStrategy in the last 6 months is Renaissance Technologies. Interestingly, they upped their position size by plus 4x in June, assuming in response to MicroStrategy CFO remarks on June 28th earnings, called that the firm may allocate Treasury into Bitcoin. He also adds that a reminder in March when Renaissance Technology included for first time in an ADV form the permission to enter into Bitcoin futures transactions, limiting trading activity to CME. Go ahead, John.
Sure. One of them, Ray Dalio, finally changed his mind on Bitcoin, which is great. There's really nothing else to comment on. But on something like this, look, Renaissance is a big fund. I don't understand why they have to invest in Bitcoin by investing in MicroStrategy. Just buy Bitcoin. Like, you guys are supposed to be smarter. Like, you guys are supposed to be the best fund in the business. And you're gonna proxy Bitcoin with MicroStrategy stock? Just go and buy the damn thing. I'm sure you have somebody at that hedge fund that knows how to hold on to a private key. So I don't even know why it took them so long. You're letting MicroStrategy beat you to it, and then you're gonna proxy it by going in with their stock. Just buy the damn thing.
Giacomo, what's your take?
Yeah, I agree with Don. This is good for Bitcoin ultimately, just like the previous news and the previous news. But it looks like the fiat world of investment is high on this or on centralization. They cannot take an individual local responsibility. They always have to centralize the risk on some other party. That's happened also to me when I was consulting Swiss banks about their clients asking to keep some Bitcoins with the Swiss bank. So you have the client asking the bank to keep Bitcoin with the bank and not to themselves. And the bank wanted to ask me to find a Bitcoin company to keep Bitcoin for them instead of themselves. So the fiat world is so much based on centralization that they actually increase centralization and risk centralization even when it's not absolutely relevant or logical like here. So that's very curious.
Jimmy, you want to give us your take on what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, really, really quick. But basically, these are companies that have a lot of regulation around them, and it's hard to discern exactly what the regulations might be that are that force them in this direction. But like Giacomo said, almost all of these regulations force centralization so that the government can come in and tax it or regulate it or take it even. So that's probably what's happening. More of these guys will try to do it. At some point, there might be a regulation that prevents some of these if the government perceives that these are the main vehicles by which Bitcoin gets bought.
All right, thank you very much for that very comprehensive answer. Moving on, Venezuela ramps up Bitcoin payments for imports from Iran and Turkey. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro claims that the country will use all the cryptocurrencies in the world to bypass US sanctions. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro's government has promoted its state-issued purportedly oil-backed cryptocurrency as a means of exchange both internationally and domestically since launching the token in 2018. However, poor adoption of the petro has forced the regime to explore other crypto assets, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. The Venezuelan government established its Digital Assets Production Center, a Bitcoin mining warehouse, in November as the country increased its reliance on cryptocurrencies. Tone, you responded in a tweet to this in a tweet saying, I strongly advise President Maduro to use the decentralized Ripple infrastructure with its uncensorable XRP currency instead. Ripple should also be able to provide client support in case he has any issues. Best of both worlds. Bitcoin is only for crazy maximalists. Do you want to?
Jack was laughing. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, Florence. Thank you for that. Yeah, so this tweet, like, so many people were confused. They didn't get the sarcasm. And it was really funny watching the reactions. So if you want to go back to the actual tweet of Venezuela, this is really, really important. I think this is a huge, huge story. And it highlights, actually, if you want to scroll down to that first paragraph that you read, it highlights something that we've been saying and laughing at since day one. There's only one important thing that matters to any currency, and that is confidence. It was laughable that Venezuela created the petrol currency because no one in the world is going to accept the petrol currency. But they have been able to use gold in their dealings with Iran and in their dealings apparently with Turkey. And obviously, it's very difficult to use gold. And now they're switching to cryptocurrencies. But obviously, no one is going to accept the petrol. Nobody cares about the petrol. So now they're stuck with using cryptos. And they don't really understand the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. So they're happy to use both. It will only be a matter of time before they realize that all of those other shitcoins, whether it's BitConnect or Ethereum or Litecoin or Monero, they don't have the liquidity, they don't have the general adoption, and eventually it will only be Bitcoin because no one else is going to accept their Ethereum because the Ethereum is pretty much irrelevant and it's less stable. The currency is more volatile, the fees are through the roof, and it will all default to Bitcoin. Now, I think they should use Ripple, and they should announce to the world that they're using Ripple, and then we will know. This would be a litmus test. This would be the test to prove to the world that Ripple is decentralized. If Venezuela starts to exclusively use Ripple with their trading partners that also use Ripple. So all they have to do is get Iran and North Korea and I guess Turkey, Afghanistan, why not? Get them in on it as well. Don't forget, I mean, Cuba isn't that frowned upon anymore. Get them all to run a Ripple gateway and just use Ripple. It will be absolutely perfect, and you'll have client support in case something goes wrong. This is a really, really big deal in that, not that I support President Maduro at all, but, and I can't really say what I want to say because I can't say the E word or the B word, different B word, the B I word and the TU word as to how President Maduro got elected in his country. I can't talk about that at all, unfortunately. But this is what it's going to come down to. And this is going to demonize Bitcoin in the eyes of the US government. But they don't understand that while President Maduro is a bad person, and I'll happily say that. However, he has a responsibility to the people of Venezuela to do the best that he can for his country. And if that involves going around American sanctions, that's what he has to do. I mean, put yourself in this dictator's shoes, and what would you do? And this is what we have, because money should not be the arm of politics. Money should be should have equal access around the world for every single human, and no currency does that better than Bitcoin.
Thanks, Ton. Jimmy, do you agree with Ton, or what's your take?
Yeah, so they're interesting because they think they could just say, okay, well, this is what we're going to pay with, and that their merchants are going to just sort of flat out accept it. That's kind of not how it works. It's like whatever your supplier will take. If they want dollars and you can't supply dollars, you're just not going to get the item. Like you can give them whatever ripples you want, but they don't take ripples, that's just not going to work. And that's not how commerce works. I can go to Dell and say, I'll give you 1,000 Ripple for this computer. That's not going to work because Dell doesn't take Ripple. And this is kind of where, like being a dictator kind of like warps your worldview a little bit. You think that you can impose your will on people that are not under your control. They could try as much as they want. I mean, I suppose they might have some agreement with maybe Turkish or Iranian people. At which point, like it's what are they? They have to pay in that, so that means that they have to go and get Bitcoin, XRP, or whatever. how are they going to do that? What are they going to sell so they have that, right? Or who are they going to do that with? So it just kind of doesn't really make sense. Like the currency that they've been using is their own, and whatever little dollars they have, you know, they've pretty much used up. They have to sell like oil rights to the fields they have in the future and things, which are being heavily discounted. So yeah, I'm not sure how this works, because I'm not sure Venezuela really produces anything except a little bit of oil.
Yeah, but Jimmy, just to push back a little bit, I don't know how Turkey got into this discussion. I don't know if Turkey is really ready to accept Bitcoin, but Iran certainly understands Bitcoin, and we've covered stories where Bitcoin is being looked at positively by the Iranian government.
Same with the Turkish government. But I mean, the thing is, like, Venezuela has to go and get that first, right? Like,
well, they're mining it. That's the other part of the story on the screen right there. Like,
I mean, I don't think it's a significant, and I mean, maybe like little bits and pieces.
Well,
it's not going to be anything like
here's the beauty of it.
Part of their imports.
We don't know how much Venezuela is mining. That's the beauty of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think you can probably tell by the amount of minor imports that are coming into the country. I'm pretty sure they don't have chip fabs there. I mean, none of this is going to be secret to anybody that's been paying attention to the industry.
Hey, Giacomo, can you move up a little bit for two reasons? One, you're a tiny little, you're a little tiny in the screen, and two, closer to the mic would be great.
Don't body shame me. I'm tiny, but
no, it's because you're sitting far, not because you're small.
I don't know. Your new profile pic is gigantic. So I don't
exactly.
know.
So now I'm compensating by staying.
Yeah. By the way, hey Giacomo, who is that? Who is your new profile pic?
That's the former health minister of Belgium. Just to let you think about.
I'm sorry. Wait. That's the health minister?
It was just
dude, there are so many pictures of health ministers that look incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah, there is a collection of a health minister that looks that always look one step removed from a heart attack or from a collapse, and that was one of the most significant. Yeah. So this woman was actually controlling other people's lives in order to keep them healthy. That's literally true. That's incredible. That's fiat. That's fiat. Government, that's fiat law and fiat health and fiat medicine.
Jesus Christ. Okay, go on.
But anyway,
all right. Jimmy, your thoughts on Venezuela. This is our biggest story. So have at it. Your floor.
So basically, I think that there are two things interesting here. One is that this is a school book example of the 5 stages of loss of Kubler-Ross. Basically, this is true basically everywhere with every government and every big finance firm. But in this case, it's very, very like crystal clear. So Maduro started ignoring Bitcoin, of course. Then he started trying to persecute Bitcoin and to stop Bitcoin and to criminalize Bitcoin. There were many accounts of people arrested in Venezuela for trying to mine or trying to buy Bitcoin. Then he basically tried to strike a deal with Bitcoin on his terms, creating an alternative. So bargaining. So he created the Petro, which is a useless shitcoin. And then there was a depression when he realized that Petro are absolutely useless, because there is no reason to have a Petro at all. And then there is acceptance, and Maduro is just using Bitcoin. So this is, in a way, is the same of Ray Dalio, and it will be the same everywhere. These phases are very general. They are not always so clean and clear cut like this. So it's very interesting to watch. It's basically a textbook representation of the phases. And the other thing which is interesting is that Bitcoin has a different as the same game theory, but this game theory plays out very differently among individuals and among government and the relationship between government and individuals. So Bitcoin is a defensive technology created to make it difficult to control people controlling their wealth and their money transfers. So in a way, Bitcoin is going to be a very difficult thing to manage for Maduro, because Venezuelan people will be less easy to controlling their money. So the Venezuelan government will lose power over the Venezuelan people. But on a global scale, nation states behave a little bit like virtual individuals which are in this kind of strange anarchist state. So on a global scale, if you replace individuals with nation states, Bitcoin will also make more difficult to control one nation state by another nation states via controlling their money, which is basically what the United States are doing with the global economy right now. So on one hand, a dictator like Maduro or Kim Jong-un or whatever, they will hate Bitcoin because Bitcoin will allow Venezuelan people to export wealth without leaving track at the border. They will allow a better black market, better gray markets. So they will allow more it will allow more freedom. So he will hate Bitcoin. On the other hand, though, it will allow more freedom for Maduro himself to, for example, many dictators have to worry about how to hide their wealth when they escaped after a revolution. That happened. That was a problem for many former Soviet Union dictators. They have to escape without bringing all the money with them. So the dictator will appreciate Bitcoin for himself and for his circle, but also as a way to protect the nation state from bigger and more powerful nation states, like in this case, Venezuela, against the sanctions of the United Nations, the United or NATO or United States and so on. So it's very, very interesting to look that sophisticated game theory creating a complex relationship. Like the Facebook status. Do you like Bitcoin, Maduro? It's complicated.
Yeah, let me just jump in a little bit. So I don't think Maduro has to worry about Venezuelan people smuggling wealth out of Venezuela. They have no wealth. Him and what's his name, Chavez, destroyed that part. But your other point about people like Maduro acquiring more wealth because of Bitcoin is important. And it's on the same par, even worse so than my prior statements about Michael Saylor, completely different people, obviously, in that more smart people that want to do good for the world should be getting into Bitcoin. Don't let Maduro and other dictators be wealthier than you by buying up all the Bitcoin. So sure, I'd rather have Michael Saylor buy it all than Maduro, but there's a lot of people like if Maduro gets it, maybe you should too, before he becomes the richest man in the world.
That's a very great payoff. I will use it in like in AD on the street. Don't let evil people buy Bitcoin. Buy it first.
Buy Bitcoin or your enemies will.
Yeah.
I think in fact, I'm going to go tweet that right now.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So in our next story, we go to Europe, where G7 finance officials need to regulate digital currencies. So to summarize, the establishment has renewed its calls for regulation of cryptocurrencies, especially now that official central bank digital currencies are in the process of being rolled out to enable instantaneous deposits from central banks, with German's Prime Minister Olaf Scholz saying in a sharply worded statement, we must do everything possible to make sure the currency monopoly stays in the hands of the state. Giacomo, what's your response to these comments by Olaf Scholz and this story as a whole?
I think that's a beautiful sentence, and it's very true. They do have to make everything they can to keep government in control and in monopolistic control of money. If they don't, the way the nation states have grown in the last century is completely unsustainable. And the only way you can have like stuff like World War I or World War II or concentration camps or genocides, the only way you can sustain that or a global state of war all the time is via monopoly of money. If you lose that, you cannot create, you cannot keep entire populations as slaves or imprisoned, but I'm not mentioning why, so I'm not actually mentioning the C word, if you don't have a monopoly of money. So these people are actually really, they should be concerned about Bitcoin and should do whatever they can to keep the violent monopoly of money. The point is that if Bitcoin is designed well, as it was, if Bitcoin works as intended, there's nothing they can do. So it will be funny to see that playing out. it will be funny to see them try. Individually, some of us will actually have some not very funny problem to solve, because, for example, now they are changing the meaning of words. They are basically starting to call normal Bitcoin wallet, absolutely normal Bitcoin wallet, as self-hosted wallet, which is completely nonsense. Every wallet is self-hosted by definition. That's Bitcoin. So they will start to try to create a new newspeak Orwellian language, and they will try to stop people from owning keys and running nodes. And if Bitcoin works as intended, people will just answer nah.
Right. Let's have your analysis, Jimmy.
Well, so the whole self-hosted wallet thing, I think the best meme I saw was Stefan Livera, taking a picture of his wallet with some cash in it and saying, "Look, I'm self-hosting my dollars," which is kind of true. Like, what the hell, man? Like one set of rules for one thing and another set of rules for another thing. This points to something that government does, which is to eliminate any sort of like bearer instruments. The thing about bearer instruments is that they don't require a third party, and the government wants to get in between, in the middle of that, and that's been their sort of regulatory model since forever. So it's understandable why they want to do this. Whether or not they're going to be successful is another thing entirely, because what you get is a lot of people that are going to push back, including congressmen and senators and people like that, who think that this is clearly an overreach. So, I mean, I think it's time to just sort of say, bring it on. Let's see what you got. And we got a lot more people on our side than you would think, and we'll get them coming out of the woodwork to show. But I mean, people care about freedom, at least from a monetary standpoint. Even like the most liberal, like social justice based person or whatever, when it comes to their wallet, they want their privacy and they want to keep whatever money they have. So otherwise they could go and donate to the government for all the social programs they want, but they never do that, do they? So I think this is a good way to show people where people actually are, instead of
I'm sorry, hey guys, I have a problem. So my computer is about to die, and it's actually plugged in. So just a heads up, and there's nothing I can do about this.
Why don't you get your rant in then?
Yeah, so this show might cut short. I didn't realize I was draining so much energy, and because I'm not going to be traveling with an 8-pound power brick, so I charge it from a USB-C, and instead of the official power brick, and it's just not strong enough to keep the charge going. And I can't believe it just drained it throughout this whole show. Real quick, we may have to do another show. I'm going to try to charge this thing up and do a price show from the airport, because that's where I'm headed. I am off to the rally in DC. Real quick on this, you guys are of course right. However, and as both of you say, bring it on to attack Bitcoin. The thing is, they're not going to attack Bitcoin. They're going to attack their own citizens. And that's a concern. So if you feel uncomfortable that, like when I go outside, I mean, in certain countries I am, but in the modern countries, like US, like anywhere in Europe, I'm not scared of being attacked on the street. I'm way more scared about being arrested by the authorities, just for even having this YouTube channel and talking politics and Bitcoin or whatever. And that's a concern. So if that's a concern for you, then get the hell out. Go somewhere else. Go to a jurisdiction where you don't feel threatened for getting arrested for having some digital bits. And this goes back to this whole concept of rulers, mostly communist rulers over you, dictators ruling over you, that don't understand or go by their own constitution, going back to the 4th Amendment of the US Constitution, where the point was for unreasonable search and seizure, specifically stated that your private diary was never to be subject for search and seizure, reasonable or unreasonable. But yet in today's world, your private diary is literally your cell phone. And yet somehow it doesn't belong in that conversation of your private diary and your messages and your ideas. So this is the problem, and they don't see how Bitcoin is your private property, your private thoughts, your private digital data, and like the cash in the wallet, as Jimmy mentioned, as Stephen Levere tweeted out. All right, those are my general thoughts. I mean, the next set of headlines was going to be just, how Congress is pushing back, because there are a few people in U.S. Congress, especially the former Congressman Ron Paul. So I don't know, Florence, if you want to just like click on just the headlines, because like I said, I'm watching my computer go down to 10%, and this won't be. Zoom drains a lot of power, I guess, and like the next few stories. And we can.
Well, your computer drains a lot of power. You have like 3 screens on there or something,
yeah,
and like a super processor.
I solved the microphone problem this morning, but now I gotta solve my charging problem, or I gotta figure out which applications are draining the most energy. I'm assuming it's Zoom.
Your computer is mining shitcoin for some bootnet.
Yeah, because. I'm sorry, guys. We gotta jump to the mempool here. We're not gonna be able to finish the rest of the stories, but they weren't that interesting. It was mostly exchanges trying to be banks.
All right, so it looks like everything is pretty clear right now. Look at that. You can get in for 17, 18 sats per byte at the moment, and the last block went for 20 sats per byte. And yeah, we're doing well. There's a lot of mining power that's online and so on. So you're going to be able to mine or get transactions in right away for 20, and probably like 5 or 6 will get in the next hour or so. Yeah, and if you're willing to wait overnight, we're heading into the weekend in about a day or so. So probably like 1.1 sat per byte is probably enough at that point. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Let's go up to my website so I can promote my 3 books.
Right.
All right, Programming Bitcoin. This is a good one for programmers if you want to learn about it. From a technical standpoint, it's a step-by-step, very logical flow that you can learn from. Also have the Little Bitcoin book, which Florence, if you would be so kind as to click over to. It is a book, that tells you what it is, and it's for people that are completely clueless about Bitcoin to be able to learn about it and so on. This was done with a book sprint. Lot of interesting stuff in there, including the human rights angle on Bitcoin. And finally, Thank God for Bitcoin. It's a newly released book, and it makes the moral argument for Bitcoin from a Christian perspective. And it looks like Florence is the host now, so Tone went away. But yeah, Thank God for Bitcoin. It is available on Amazon all around the world. It is available in print and on Kindle. But yeah, it's a book that makes the moral case. It has a lot of Bible verses and so on. If you have a relative that's Christian, I suggest that you give them this book, because we make a pretty thorough biblical case for Bitcoin.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. So do you guys want to go over the rest of the stories, or what do you think? Giacomo?
Well, so let me pretend to be Tone and just look at the price. Because he's probably like, where the hell is... Okay, all right.
Well,
Am I back?
Yeah, you are back. You are back. We were gonna look at the price and act like Tone. I was gonna do your accent and everything, but I guess the viewers aren't gonna get a taste of that today.
They're not, but I'm on my cell phone now. Unfortunately, no, you will. I will stream from the airport. I will be at the airport probably in about 2 hours or so. I still got to get a couple of things done here. And once I'm done with that, here we go. Boom, let me do it this way. Okay, so I am on South Beach, in case you guys are curious, right there. Yeah, so sorry guys, I'll bring you the price stream from the airport, and we'll take care of that. Giacomo, you said your closing thoughts already?
Yeah, no, we were basically discussing that already with the others. So I would just say one thing, also concerning what Jimmy said about many people actually don't liking freedom for others, but liking freedom, especially monetary freedom, for themselves. This is a rhetoric that I think it's as merits. I think it's true, and I also use that a lot. I will not really rely on that too much, in the sense of the sentence that is used very, very much these days, which is when a lot of politicians will use Bitcoin for themselves, we can rest assured that they will not ban Bitcoin, they will not try to steal Bitcoin, confiscate Bitcoin. That's actually not entirely true, because we are assuming consistency and we are assuming basically equality, which is not what politics is all about. If you think about politicians closing down beauty salon, but then somehow going into beauty salons without masks, if you think about politicians banning alcohol, but then drinking alcohol during prohibition, and if you think about all the things that politicians ban from the market and also use from themselves, you can see that Maduro can still ban Bitcoin for Venezuelans and still use Bitcoin for himself. So I agree that in general, it's good to have the enemy using Bitcoin as well, because Bitcoin is the money for your enemy, and you should buy it before your enemy, as Jimmy said and tweeted. But you should not.
It's got like 200 likes already. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tweet. But we should not rely on the fact that if our enemy uses Bitcoin, then he will not try to ban or confiscate or prohibit Bitcoin for us. So it's important that it's important to first to have people in Congress fighting for keeping Bitcoin free, like Ron Paul or other people elected recently. So that's good to have some Trojan horses, but also it's important to learn to use Bitcoin in a way that is, if not impossible, at least very, very difficult and expensive to confiscate and to manipulate and to ban and to corrupt. So use your private keys, don't avoid KYC, CoinJoin after identity leaks, and run your node and try to do it without showing you up your IP. It's difficult stuff. It's better to get Bitcoin wrong than to not get it at all, possibly. But it's better to actually use the time we have in this honeymoon phase, while we are not yet actively confiscated, to learn more and to make our Bitcoin nodes and keys more resistance to confiscation.
Yes, I just want to add right there, like beautiful thoughts, Giacomo, about what it is that people are doing. And it is in your own best interest to do things like coin joins. If you think about it, with the dollar, the equivalent of a coin join or making it unconfiscatable is setting up an offshore shell company with various tax advantages and so on. Compared to that, what we're able to do in Bitcoin on your own is just orders of magnitude easier and cheaper. So that's how you have to look at it. And those are costs that we should be very willing to pay. There are lots of congressmen, I assure you, that are using shell companies and offshore banking accounts and things like that in order to avoid taxation that they themselves implement on the rest of the public. So Bitcoin is the money of enemies, and we're gonna see it right now.
Right. So we still have a few more stories to cover, but I think we might have to skip that and end it here. I don't know. Or what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, we got to skip it. I actually have to get going. And oh boy, it's possible there may not be any more streams because my computer isn't charging at all at the moment. So I'm not sure if it died or I short-circuited something. So it's possible there may not be any stream.
It's probably your USB-C cable is probably not supplying enough power, or it's trickle charging or something like that. You might have to keep it open.
I know, but I've already tried like putting in a different cord and everything, and like the light that says my computer is charging is not lighting. So if I can't recharge my laptop, that's gonna be a problem because I still have a lot more travel to do, and I won't have the high power supply Lenovo charger because I'm dependent on the USB-C charger instead.
Yeah, so the USB-C has a 35 watt version and a 45 watt version. I don't know if you have the 45, but the Lenovo might be like 60. So
No, Jimmy. No,
probably the problem.
I mean, like I've been traveling with Lenovo and I've been charging with my cords. They're all Thunderbolt 3 cords. They're 40 gigabit. I mean, look, I have the capability to charge it. I've been doing it for the entire week, but there is a light that says my computer is charging, and that light is no longer lighting up, which means that it's possible that I short-circuited the USB-C port, which means I can't charge my computer with a USB-C anymore. And that means I can't.
It might be the other end. It might be the actual power part that short circuit.
No. I've tried my portable battery. I've tried the plug.
Okay.
I've in the last 5 minutes. I'll keep working on it, but I'm just saying it is possible I will not have access to a computer for several days. I hope
you're gonna end up getting a second computer anyway.
Dude, I actually love this computer, and it cost me $4,000. And Asus is terrible at client support. They never get back to you. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with this $4,000 machine if I can't charge it. And my USB-C port died, which would be fucked up. Anyway, hey guys, I gotta run. I have to do like laundry before I run to the airport if I still have time. I'm going to be at the Washington, D.C. I will hopefully be able to somehow stream the rally. I'll do my best because I did just spend $500 on a GoPro.
I think that is it for today then. Thank you very much, Tom.
All right. Well, real quick, Tone, I think the reason why a lot of people tune in is where's the price going? Just really quick, are we going down further? Because we're right around 18,000.
I think we're going to go down a little bit further. I mean, I saw this morning we just hit a new low of 17.5. I still think we're going down a little bit lower, but I can no longer look at my chart, so I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. That seems reasonable. And then the swing low is right around 16, which looks like it might be in play after it breaks.
I think it still is. I think it still is in play.
Yeah. In which case we go down to maybe like 15.5, something like that, and then bounce back, or even
probably
lower.
Like we're closer to 15 would be great. I'll definitely be going all in there. Okay.
All right. So you guys heard it. It's Tone Vays analysis in 30-second bite instead of listening to an hour. I think I just saved your listeners about like 55 minutes, although might have taken some of your views. Sorry about that.
All right, guys. Bye. Giacomo, say bye.
Bye.
Thank you for
Fiat Lenda S. This song is done, baby. All right.
Bye, guys.